Hi, everyone.
I didn't know that was your reputation.
Well, and every now and then, so I do have the reputation for being very prim and proper, and so like election night of 2020, there was a reporter from the Atlantic who decided to watch the whole thing with me from my house. We were all on Zoom, and at one point when we were all terrified that the election might go badly, I used a very bad word. And that became like the biggest takeaway from the whole article. But I would like to say how delighted we are to be here in sunny Arizona. This is a live version of the Mona Charen Show, which people will be able to get later online. And I am thrilled that we were able to rope this man, Stephen Richer, in joining us. So, as you know, Stephen Richer was the recorder for Maricopa County, or, if you believe Kari Lake, incompetent, corrupt fool.
There's a middle ground there. It's probably somewhere near the truth.
So, before we get to a little discussion of Kari Lake, I want to play a little game of Guess Who Said This. Okay? So,
Harry Potter. Harry Potter. Okay.
So I'll give you one hint before we get going. Okay. These are all Republicans.
All Republicans.
Okay? All right. So this one said, Donald Trump is a con artist, and friends do not let friends vote for con artists.
I mean, the year would be very helpful on this.
I'll give you that.
Okay.
2016.
2016. I mean, that could be Secretary Rubio.
That's it.
Oh wow.
Well done. Well done.
Are we done?
No.
Oh, shucks.
All right. Next quotation. You know how you make America great again? Tell Donald Trump to go to hell. He's a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot. He doesn't represent my party.
The go to hell part sounds a little Chris Christie-ish, but I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there.
Okay.
Because I think I know the way this game is going to go. Who else from the cabinet would say this? Was it JD?
It wasn't. It was Lindsey Graham.
Okay. Oh. Sorry, this lady here in the front knew that.
Very good. So we're 1 for 2. All right. Now, this one is my favorite because of where we are. In 2017, this person said about a path to citizenship for dreamers. She said, why deport these kids? Oops, I gave it away. Why deport these kids? They are assets to our country. These are families seeking a better life. We need to remember our humanity.
Yeah. This was pre-conversion Kari.
Correct.
Yeah.
That was Kari Lake.
And pre-conversion in lots of different ways, like religion, politics, job. Yeah. Lots of. If you start a new religion, I would recommend you recruit her as number one. Like you can get her to flip, and then she's very ardent. Yeah, she's on religion number 3 right now. So
is that right?
Yeah.
What were they?
Catholicism, Buddhism, now evangelicalism.
Okay. Well.
No stop at Judaism.
I know.
Unbelievable. Admittedly, like it's kind of hard to convert in, and we don't really encourage.
We don't encourage it. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't. Kari Lake's a very lovely person in her.
Hey, you heard what Mona's reputation is.
This is a setup. So she is very attractive looking, but I will say that I did come across this great quotation on X after she had done some television appearance, and she's gone through some changes, just say. And this person said, to the person who did Kari Lake's makeup, "Welcome to the resistance."
I don't do the physical comment thing. The internet lets me know regularly that I am balding, and so I'm aware of these things. And I wish everyone happiness with their own personal appearance.
Yeah.
So. My wife loves me, so that's all that I really care about.
She has excellent taste. All right. So because Kari Lake went through her various conversions, not the religious ones, but the political one, she caused you a fair amount of grief, and not just her, but the entire Republican establishment. So you got harassment, doxing, death threats, and more than threats. I mean, federal prosecutors charged a Missouri man for a plot to murder you.
Yeah. I think Missouri, Boston, San Diego, Lubbock, Texas. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the vice chair of the Arizona Republican Party, Shelby Bush, said during a campaign speech that if you walked into a room, she would lynch you. And here's, the story that talked about this. This was sort of encapsulates so much of our time. The story closed with this line: Shelby Bush, Maricopa County Republican Party Chairman Craig Berland, and the Arizona Republican Party did not respond to a request for comment. So somebody says somebody should be lynched, and it's no comment. So, but to be serious for a minute, though, Stephen, please just describe what that was like for you and your family. We can joke about it, but it is not anything that is easy to go through.
Yeah, and I have the privilege now of working with some people who have had their lives turned upside down, and it's hard to, you might say sticks and stones or whatever, like words won't hurt you, but when some of these people comment about you, it really does. It's not just an internet phenomenon, because they have it's sort of it's very visceral, it's very thuggish, and so it's almost granting your followers permissions or license to dehumanize that person. And when that person is dehumanized, then they're not entitled to the same type of respect that we would all give each other in this room, and you would give everyone in your normal lives, which is like you wouldn't spit in their face, you wouldn't like take off your shoe and bang it on your windshield, which are things that happen to me. And so, it unfortunately looks just like, sort of like warring thugs, and it's sad. And then, the real sin, it's the unforgivable sin, and it remains the litmus test to this day, which is if you go interview with Donald Trump for a cabinet position, one thing that he reportedly asks you is, was the 2020 election stolen? And so when that has been so central to the new party's identity, and when I am an apostate on those terms, then it becomes not just like we have this disagreement, but you turn your back on your clan, and so therefore you're dead to us.
In other words, you're saying that you, in effect, you brought this on yourself because you would not lie.
Yeah. At least about this. Like, I still think that, like, I'll still say, if someone asks me, like, will the Suns go far in the playoffs? I'll be like, yeah. Yes, they will.
So one feature that we all watched happen over the years since 2015 is we saw the Republican Party just capitulate, person after person, just basically bent the knee, some of the people we've quoted tonight, but many others. And occasionally somebody would have the courage, like you did, to put their head over the parapet, and it would get shot off. Yeah. And so basically the party just folded and became a cult, or at least they became quiet collaborators. But what we're seeing right now is that it isn't just the Republican Party. I mean, since the 2024 election, we've seen major business leaders like Bezos and Zuckerberg not just cave, but shovel money at Trump, toward the inaugural committee, which is, of course, just putting money in his pocket. Amazon gave some deal with Melania Trump where they're going to the licensing of her her autobiography, $40 million. You had and now we've seen as Trump is doing these absolutely full frontal assaults on law firms and on universities and on lots of individuals, pulling people's security clearances, whatever. In all these cases, we're seeing something similar playing out. That is, people are folding. Other law firms are not standing up to say we're going to defend Paul Weiss or Perkins Coie, et cetera. So,
Williams and Connolly did.
Yay!
So shout out to
Yes. So what do you make of this? Yeah, there's one.
I think the Melania one's funny because all the other sort of, I guess, basically payments to the administration are pretty transparent. We're going to give you this $1 million for the inauguration fund, and hopefully you'll lay off of Amazon or ABC. The Melania one, $40 million, you said, for her biography?
Yeah.
I wonder if Donald Trump's like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? like, do I want that story told? And this sort of creates more independence. Anyhow, so one of the phenomenon that I was struck by consistently in 2021 was this, just the collective action problem that if you asked Republicans behind the scene, elected Republicans behind the scene, they all agreed. And if we had just done it en masse, if everyone at that time, then this would have been nipped in the bud, and because you can't throw out every single elected Republican. You can't,
Exactly.
discredit all of us. But when it's one by one, then it looks like they're individual heretics. And so now we see exactly the same phenomenon happening, where I think if every single university, or even just 50 universities said, we're not going to play by those rules, then what are you going to do? Defund the entire university system? That ups the game of chicken quite a bit. There's probably some who would say, yes, defund the entire university system. But and similarly with major law firms, if every sort of major law firm had a mutual defense pact together, then would you just say people aren't supposed to do business with the top 100 law firms in the country? But instead, we're seeing the same phenomenon that the Republican Party has learned, and a lot of people say, well, Republicans didn't exhibit courage because they either were quiet or they were complicit over the last 4 years. And now we're finding out that might just be human nature, that sticking your neck out is not a fun thing to do, and that some of these places see that as even sort of a fiduciary mismanagement. Maybe some of these firms would say that's irresponsible to my partnership class. And so I think that we better get ready to be pretty disappointed pretty consistently.
But they do know. They do know what they're doing is wrong. In some cases it's just venal. They're thinking, oh, Paul Weiss is in trouble, maybe we can get their clients, right? And so there's some of that. But also, here, I want to quote from this statement was just issued today. This is from the officers of the State Bar of the state of Michigan. And again, this is an institution that is supposed to uphold certain values. And they are. Here's what they said. We recognize our fundamental purpose as attorneys is to defend liberty and justice for all people. regardless of political persuasion and regardless of popular opinion. As such, we fundamentally oppose any action that could undermine an independent judiciary and our nation's long-held democratic values. And they go on and they list a few things, and they mention, really subtweeting what's happening. They say judges must never face threats or intimidation for rendering decisions. Lawyers and law firms must not face retaliation when advocating claims or defenses on behalf of any person or cause, even when the person or cause may be difficult or controversial. You would think, is that so hard?
But I'll just tell you, yes, it is hard because I know I've written statements like that and sent them to various people and say, hey, will you sign on to that? And I've been privy to enough of those conversations to know the hand-wringing that there is for something like that. And the fact that you chose which bar, state bar, Minnesota?
Michigan.
Michigan. I'm guessing that wasn't just your favorite state and you had so many to choose from. You chose that because it was one of the few that was available. And the American Bar Association has put out some strong statements as well. But I think that people were hearing Chief Justice Roberts say that judges shouldn't be impeached. Like, some people thought, well, you should go further than that. But to me, I was like, wow, that's pretty significant, I thought. Yeah. Chief Justice Roberts.
Hey, can we talk about that for just another second? Because I want to hear what you think. You saw what happened after Trump's State of the Union, right? Where he's going and shaking hands with various people. Yeah. And he goes up to Roberts and he shakes his hand. I think he even clapped him on the shoulder and he said, won't forget, thank you very much. And I think that Roberts may have been deeply embarrassed by that. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I don't know, but I would say if he's banking on Trump not forgetting, there's a lot of people who were part of the first administration. I'm sure at some point he said to Mike Pence, oh, I won't forget your help here. And it's well, he did.
Right. No, but I think it might have embarrassed him because he might have felt like it made it look as if that immunity decision was some sort of a gift to Trump, and it's some sort of a deal. Yeah.
We don't know that.
We don't
know that.
We're speculating.
And being careful about facts is what hopefully defines sort of our world from some of the worlds that we criticize. We do know that the Chief Justice is very careful, and we know he cares a lot about the reputation of the court and the independence of the judiciary, and I think he is probably quite worried about that right now. And I dare say that doesn't contribute to help. I bet he wishes Trump hadn't said anything. Probably he was regretful that they even had to go to the State of the Union.
Correct.
And please don't look at us, please don't look at us. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Sort of thing, yeah.
Here he comes. No, that's my point actually, is that I think that immunity decision will go down in history as one of the worst in the court's history. It was made up out of whole cloth. It was completely contrary to any originalist principles. It was terrible in every way. But that much having been said, I personally do not believe that Roberts did it in any way in collusion with Trump. But he did it for whatever reasons. But when Trump goes up and thanks him and says, won't forget, it makes Roberts look bad. And I think, therefore, he wanted to issue some kind of a statement about the Judge Boasberg thing so that he could, emphasize, I am independent, I'm willing to criticize Trump. That's all.
I mean, I just think that the dominant strategy is the Karen Pence strategy, where everyone else showed up for the funeral except for Karen Pence, because then you had this whole scene with Trump interacting with with Obama, and what did they say at that? And it's just Karen Pence, doesn't want to show up to some of these things or doesn't want to interact with him, and so I think that's probably the dominant strategy right now.
Okay, so you've spoken about in many different fora about election integrity and about trying to convince Republicans in particular about the safeguards
The accuracy
of
of
voting.
our elections.
Yeah, the accuracy.
Mission accomplished. They believe now. Yeah, no, seriously. About 80% of Republicans right now have confidence in the administration of the 2024 election, and happily, Democrats didn't go down that much. Usually, you see a bigger losers decline. We only went down by about 10 points from like 85 to 75. So right now, we have confidence in elections. So yeah, like I said,
so you're
mission accomplished.
you are so persuasive.
No, but you know, we in the elections community world have tried a lot to try to convince Americans that the democratic process is something that they can have trust in, and there are lots of ways in order to verify the accuracy of our elections. And I hope that that did something, and maybe that's the reason why Democrats didn't dip very much from this recent loss. Hopefully it contributed to that. But I don't think there are many election administrators who are sitting around the country being like, oh, I guess, you know, it's business as usual now, and we don't have to worry about 2026 or 2028. We know that this is very much still in play, and we know that at least a good amount of those believers now are predicated simply on the results of the election. Except for Kari. She lost in Arizona. Which... she showed a measure of restraint. I was so curious, like, how is she going to sue this time when literally every other Republican won in the state, and Donald Trump won Arizona by 100,000 votes? And so I think it just goes back to the first rule of politics, which is like you have to be at least a little bit likable with the median person.
So speaking of that, you got interested in public affairs. I assume are you still a Republican?
Yeah.
Okay. So you are, I've heard you say you were imbued with a love of free markets and capitalism and American exceptionalism and all those things that we associate.
Applause! Yay! American exceptionalism, capitalism. Thank you, guy down front.
Things that we associate with a Republican Party that no longer exists.
I accept that premise now. I fought that premise for a while.
Okay.
That is not the party right now. It is not a philosophical party in any way, shape, or form.
Right. So my question for you is, believing those things, and by the way, I believe them too. I would love to find a party that combines the best of both Democrats and Republicans. There are many aspects of traditional Republican philosophy that I still believe in. I think markets are more efficient than government, and I believe in of course, this would be great if the Democrats would take it over. I believe that America should continue to be the world leader of something called the free world. And this Republican Party is trashing that faster than anybody could have believed possible. If the Democratic Party takes up that mantle, things could get interesting. But I want to ask about you. So you're really likable. You're somebody.
There are people on the internet who insist otherwise.
I've heard.
And apparently some voters within the Republican primary.
But do you think about a future in politics, and could you imagine yourself running for office as something other than a Republican?
Yeah, I don't know. My whole plan was on April 1st to run for Secretary of State against Adrian, just because I wanted to do that to him again. I wasn't actually going to run, but now he might not even be running for re-election, so that sort of takes away the fun of that. I mean, I care. I had some time we were administering the election, but in October, November, December, I knew I wasn't going to be recorder again in 2025. And I thought, maybe I'll just go back to either law firm life or go back to business life. And I just was like, gosh darn it, I'm still reading the newspaper. I'm still obsessing over all of these things. I'm still caring so much, so much. I'm still disappointed by so many people. And so, in my current roles at the Kennedy School and through Republic Affairs, I very much get to stay in the fight. And so yeah, I still care. I'm still in it. And so I do care, especially. And I believe that Arizona is one of the states where it is happening. And so I would love to be part of this conversation. The Arizona Republic is kind enough to let me write on a weekly-ish basis. And so I do that. And I want to see where sort of what happens in 2026 and what's the leadership of this state. Are we a Doug Ducey party, or is that done for? That was done in 2022? It wasn't the way in 2024. Will that be the way in 2028? Will that be the way in 2030? If it is, then that's a party I want to be part of. If it's not, then I want to see what else is out there. Somebody we were talking with described politics right now as more of like a salad, where everything's just sort of jumbled all together, and there aren't clean divisions, there aren't clean philosophies, even describing what the Democratic Party really believes in these days, other than not liking Trump, is a little bit of a challenging endeavor. And so I like certain individuals. I like some individuals within the Democratic Party, certainly. I like lots of people here who happen to be Democrats, even if I don't really love their politics. But then I like the politics of people like, Governor Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania. And so, it's an interesting scene, and I think that there is some measure of realignment that is happening. So certainly, like, the bachelor's degree vote is a great indicator. In 2012, Mitt Romney won the bachelor's degree vote in Arizona by a ton. Joe Biden won the bachelor's degree vote here in 2020. Katie Hobbs won the bachelor's degree vote here in 2022. So realignment is happening, and it's yet to sort of see what the parties look like when that sort of all settles down. And then the question we asked ourselves within the Republican Party world is, what is the Republican Party post Donald Trump? Is it still a Trumpist party, or is it something different?
I spent decades as a conservative and a Republican. Well, I didn't think of myself as a Republican, but I was a conservative commentator. And then the sort of floor fell out from underneath all of us in 2016. And I lost a lot of friends. I even have family members I no longer speak to. My professional associations changed radically. It was traumatic. And there are aspects of it that have not ended. I mean, like, people, do we go to this memorial service? Do we not? I mean, there's just all kinds of aspects of it that haven't even stopped now. But one thing that I learned from this that I don't think was bad was that it forced me to reevaluate many things about my worldview, and it opened me up in my 60s to rethinking things, at an age when most people are pretty, kind of cemented in who they are. And it forced me to sort of reevaluate and rethink some things and be open to different points of view. And I'm grateful for that. I think that was a really, it was an opportunity for growth, I felt. And I'm wondering if you have any similar feelings about, I know what you went through was much worse, but is there any part of you that thinks, well, there are good things that came out of this?
We don't have to socialize with a few people my wife didn't like. Let's see. I don't think I've changed. I don't think my politics have changed. I think my priorities have changed. But the last few years have been dysphoria. My priorities before were like, are you really free market, or are you really, really free market? And that was the hierarchy. And now it's like, are you a decent human being?
Yeah.
Do you care that we still have a democratic form of government? And are you halfway a thinking human being? And if you check all those 3 boxes, like, yeah, then you probably got my vote. Probably got my vote. So yeah, I don't know that I've gone through that similar transformation. Maybe that's stubborn of me, but really I just feel like the world's been changing around me, and I don't know that I've done the best at adapting to it, and maybe that's something I need to work on, because I think most of the people here, and certainly Tim Miller, would yell at me and be like, "It's not coming back. Like, get over it. Like, you're naive," and he would probably have even more choice words to say. And so maybe that's foolish
All
of me.
right. Well, thank you so much. Speaking of Tim Miller, it's going to be time to bring back our friends. You've been listening to the main Bulwark event, the Mona Charen Show. Woo! But we also have this other little niche podcast that Sarah, Tim, and JVL do. So we're going to bring them on now. Thank you all very much. Stephen, thank you so much for doing this.